This is Kieran with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And Avoid the Maze is that journey of life. We're all on it. We're all making plans. And, sometimes those plans go through, sometimes they change along the way. I know I am not where I thought I would be when I was growing up. In fact, I think I'm better off where I am today. So my guest today is Patrick Tromley. And Patrick, you've been on a very aggressive journey. You've had some great opportunities in your life, but some of those opportunities changed. And then all of a sudden you had to say, what's next? So tell us a little bit about who did you think you were going to be when you were a little boy? What did you see yourself as? A fireman, a policeman, a doctor, an acrobat?
Sure,
I don't know.
sure. I saw myself being a Major League Baseball player. That was my dream. That's what I pictured my life being. Growing up, I played multiple teams at the same time. It was a thing for me. I was what I guess you could call obsessed with it. And then I got to college and my talent didn't quite match up with that next level. So that dream was crushed there pretty quickly. But even though that happened through high school and college, I was working in the mortgage industry. My mom was in there, and I kind of followed her into that. And once I graduated college, I went into the sales side of business, and that was in 2006. And I don't know if you remember, but to the early 2000s, the mortgage and real estate industry was going nuts.
Pretty
It was on
bad.
fire.
Yeah.
And so I graduated in '06, jumped right into it, had a great year in '06, made six figures in '07, my first full year out of college, thinking I was the man. Here we go. We're going to get to there, a different path to that same kind of accomplishment or same kind of life. But then 2008 happened. And I'm sure you remember the great financial crisis or excuse me, the mortgage meltdown. And so I was forced to find a new bank to work for because I was at Washington Mutual and we got shut down by the feds. So I was scrambling, looking for a new place to go, landed at another company, was able to rebuild my business. Again, was a top producer. So I was able to get back to where I was. And then I got promoted and was running the top producing region. So everything was good again. And then that was for about 18 months. And then the feds came in again and closed down that bank. So I was left scrambling again. Really kind of frustrated, because my life wasn't really in my control. I was at the whim of somebody else.
Right.
So I bounced around a couple times, a couple different banks. And then I went into the retail side, so working direct with the consumer. And I did okay. I was not as successful as I was as a wholesale account executive working direct with brokers to bring business in. So I went out and tried to do what they were doing, and I didn't reach that same level of success that I had. So I started looking at different ways to supplement my income, and I went into the investing side. So wholesaling properties, flipping properties, that kind of thing. And through that process, I hired a mentor, really kind of dug into personal development to try and make myself better
Sure.
so that I could make more money, right? That was the whole goal of real estate is where's that next deal coming from? And my mentor really helped me figure out that my priorities were kind of screwed up. I was focusing on that next deal, always chasing that money, chasing the dollar. And as I'm sure you know, no matter how fast you run, that money always runs faster. So it's
Oh,
never enough. And
absolutely.
yeah, and it's insatiable, and you're always trying to make that next deal. No matter how big that last deal you closed was, where's the next one coming from? So my mentor helped me realize that I wasn't in alignment with my purpose. I wasn't listening to my conscience. And when I really started to do that and dial in and focus on what my conscience was telling me, I had this great epiphany that I like to say. And I realized that it's not about me and what I want. It's about who I need to be specifically for my family. And I've been married now. It'll be 15 years in October. I have three sons. So it was vitally important for me to really focus and figure out what my purpose was. What am I here to do? And through that process, I determined, like I said, it wasn't about me. It's not about me. It's about who I need to be for them. And ever since then, I've been working on myself daily, 1% better than the last is the goal. And through that process of really trying to get more intelligent, trying to dial in my mindset, trying to get healthier. That was the big part of it too, was getting healthier, because I kind of let myself go. I was giving the excuse that I was trying to gain muscle, right? So I was just eating everything, and I had no discipline, and it showed in my physique. I was soft and squishy, kind of had a belly. And so through the process of working on myself, trying to get healthier, trying to become a better example for my boys, I I really fell into this process, and through my mentor as well, through the program going with him, the changes as I was going through them, it was evident the impact on my family. And I like to tell a story that prior to me having this epiphany, my youngest son is 6, and he comes into my office every day after towards the end of the day and wants to go to the park. And maybe 50% of the time we would go and he'd get all excited. The other 50%, I'd be like, well, I'm kind of tired. Let's sit on the couch for a little bit and see what's going to happen. And you could see him slump over and he'd walk out the office a little sad. And having gone through this process and really dialed in my mindset and knowing that I need to serve them, I should be a servant leader to them. Now, when he comes in, it's my response is always go get your shoes. And you see him light up and he, kind of runs and skips out the door over here. And it's a different kind of energy that I have, and I can see the impact on my family, and it's all been positive. So because of that, I feel obligated now to help others and push others to their potential to really become their ideal individual for their family. Very similar to what I did. And it's not that I think I know everything. It's more that I've seen the effects of putting work in on yourself and what it does for your family. So I want to push everybody as hard as I can to really realize that and start that process, because it is work, right? But having somebody that's encouraging you and pushing you and holding you accountable, for me, that was the game changer. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
How you got to
But
where you are. Yeah. So
exactly.
I'm going to step back to the days that you dreamed of being out on the baseball field, because I understand it so well. My son fell in love with baseball when he was 2 years old. I was traveling on business. I called home one night and my husband says, we really can't talk to you. We're watching the baseball game. I was like, my husband wasn't into sports. My son got on the phone. He said, the Oreos are on. I said, the Oreos? Yeah, the Oreos. Can't talk to you, Mom. And they both hung up.
That's
I
funny.
came home that weekend and he explained to me he loves baseball. And at 2 years old, he was explaining the game to me.
That's awesome.
So here we thought this is going to be his future. We gave him baseball lessons. He loved it. But he wanted to play like the major leaguers. He didn't want to play t-ball. He didn't want to do what they did in school. And he had scouts watching him, but he also had meltdowns. If he didn't do it right, he was hard on himself.
Okay.
And so we had to explain to him as he was getting older, look, at either you need to make some changes if you're going to go forward, or you're still going to have to make some changes because you're going to have to change your mindset.
Right.
And that's when I realized I'm not coaching him. I'm not telling him how he's got to do it. I'm telling him you got to look ahead. Every time you have those meltdowns, they kick you off the field. And so I'm sure it wasn't exactly the same way for you, but now you're being told after all this time, all this energy you've put in, all the dreams in your head, I can't do this anymore. Now what?
Yeah, it was a punch to the gut. I like I said, I had planned on, playing for the San Diego Padres because that's where I was from. And I realized that obviously having the conversation with the head coach that wasn't going to be a thing. And I was okay with it at that time because I had another option available where people were still making good money, still had great lives, still were able to experience a lot of things that I wanted to experience. So it could have definitely been worse had I not had some kind of in or an alternative path to pursue. But it definitely rocked my world. It was a punch in the gut, and it was kind of I was depressed there for a little bit, not too long, but you know, your childhood dream is gone, and now you have to figure out, okay, I guess this is what I'm going to do. I am going to go into lending and be a lender. And you know, my mom had provided us a great life, so it wasn't the end of the world,
Sure.
but it just wasn't what I really wanted to do, you know. So I came to grips with that, and you know, I jumped into the lending world both feet because it was the next best alternative, next best option to be able to still create the life that I was trying to have.
And so here you are walking through the maze and you know exactly where you're going because you're going for baseball. Now you hit this wall, but like you said, you didn't stay at that wall very long. You said, okay, I got to look right. I got to look left. Maybe I have to backtrack, but I've got to find that solution because I don't like feeling this way.
Exactly.
And sadly, too many of us, we hit that wall and we think there's nothing left. What is there for us?
Right.
But there always is something. Sometimes we just have to find somebody else who's doing something that we like. Obviously, your mom, you saw it and was like, oh, wait a second. She's been doing this. Now I can do it.
Right.
Then you get hit in the gut a couple of times as you're going up that ladder. It's like, how many more times do I have to get hit in the gut?
Yeah, it was the first time was okay, you know, I guess this kind of happens. It was unprecedented at that time, but the second time was to the point where I was kind of like, what am I supposed to do now? This was in my mind, this was the long-term plan because my mom had been doing it for years since I was a little kid. So it's like, okay, this could be a career. And the first two companies I go to, they get shut down by the government. And it's like, okay, maybe this isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And that's when I kind of shifted into the same industry, but different position, right? I was working direct to the consumer there. And for me, it turned out that I was better in B2B sales, business to business, working with the brokers versus direct to the consumer. And so I struggled a little bit, was not bad by any means, but compared to what I was doing and compared to the vision that I had, I was struggling, and it was hard to swallow. And that's why I branched out again and kind of reached to another branch of the same general industry in real estate and started doing some flipping and started doing some wholesaling of properties. And that was a good supplement. But again, I didn't reach that level of success that I had as a wholesale account executive. And so that's really why I got into that personal development sphere is, okay, maybe there's something that I can do to make myself better, to make more money, to have more longevity in a career path. And again, it was the realization that I'm focusing on the wrong thing. I'm focusing on making money and getting that bag, as they say. And that's not a way for me to have longevity. It's not a way for me to have inner peace. It's not a way for me to feel good about myself or what I'm doing. Because again, it's an insatiable appetite in real estate. It's where's my next deal coming from? Yeah, I made a million, or I did $1 million deal, or whatever. That was yesterday. Where's the next one? And so
Day after day. Yep.
it
Yep.
can run you down pretty quick too, because management's always looking for that next deal. And so they're pounding on you let's go. Where's it at? There's no, oh, it's okay. You had a good month last month. You can take this month off. It doesn't work that way in that industry. It's a real competitive cutthroat. And you have people that don't care about anything except making that money. So I was kind of in a hard spot there because I did care. I wanted people, I wanted to build partnerships, and I wanted to help people. So when you're competing against people that will kind of lie and cheat and steal to make money, it makes it significantly harder to
Sure.
do it above board and be successful. And so I was getting frustrated, and it's not that I didn't know what I was doing by any means. It's just that I wasn't able to convert and get the business on a consistent basis. And so that it forced me to, again, find another avenue to support myself and my family.
And you know, we all have different methods in how we do things.
Yeah.
For the last 8 years up until this past fall, I was part-time working for an IT company. And I would go in and I would do training and I would do consumer training as well. And I never thought about am I hitting what they considered my goals? My goal was, am I providing the information to you that is going to be beneficial to you? Because if
Mhm.
it is, you're going to end up buying the products or whatever it is that you need with this information. And when I contacted the manager and said, look, I'm not going to do this anymore. And he said, well, why not? And I said, because I'm getting burned out. I'm not providing what I need to the clients. And he said, well, but you do so well. And I said, but I'm finding them becoming manipulative, and that's not me. I want to be honest with those individuals.
Right.
And I said, and as a coach, I am very honest. If I meet with somebody and I am not the right fit, I don't just take their money and say, okay, yeah, I'll see you next week. No,
Right.
there are so many of us out there, and let's find the right person for you. Uh, because I've had coaches take me on that never should have taken me on because they didn't want me to follow my vision. Sadly, they wanted me to follow theirs. And that's not
Right.
what coaching's about. So when
Sure.
you decided to get into coaching and mentoring, and we all use different adjectives for it,
Sure.
it wasn't that easy that you put the shingle out the first day and you were making six figures.
Definitely not. No, and the way that I market myself and my business is through social media. And prior to me doing this, I wasn't very active on social media. So it has taken a long time for me to build credibility, to build trust, and really to build my persona online of who I am, going from really posting never to posting multiple times a day, doing all the stuff, kind of filling people's feeds with my thoughts, my processes, my approach to life, what I would do in certain situations, how I eat, how I train, all these different things. And it's a grind. And I think a lot of people at this point would have quit before getting to that. And I think that applies to everything really. And I've had clients that go hard for the first 3 months out of a 6 month program. And for some reason at month three, they're like, okay, I've had enough. Even though they're getting results, they're seeing the effects in their life, the improvement is happening, they have better relationships, they have more joy, more peace. Something happens where it's like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And then you watch them revert back to where they started. And it's frustrating for me a lot of times because it seems as though I want it for them more than they do. And I think that is because, like I said earlier, the impact that I've seen on my family by me going through these changes and putting this working on myself to be that servant leader for them, it frustrates me because they're starting to see the impact on their family. They're starting to see it, and then they stop, and then they go back to what they told me they didn't want to be, what they told me they didn't like the situation they were in, and it gets frustrating. It's hard, and you're right. I don't work with everybody that applies either because we like to say your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So the message that I put out brings in certain people and it repels a lot of people because I kind of call it like it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not a coddling kind of coach. I'm going to tell you the truth. And that's mainly because we believe love isn't lies, right? I'm not going to lie to you to make you feel good when I know you're doing wrong, when I can see where you have areas for improvement and I know that I can help you in those areas. I'm going to call you out. So it's a great thing to do when people follow the plan and execute it and they implement everything and you see the results in their life. And that is what keeps me going. It's just, I wish people would have more belief in themselves and trust the process more and stay in the game long enough to win. Honestly, if they just keep going, and that's with any goal, really. I think most of us quit. Look at New Year's resolutions. Most of
Right.
us quit a couple weeks in, and if we were to keep going, we would get there. We have to remove our time frame, our expectation of, okay, I'm going to get this in 2 months. If we can remove that time frame, that arbitrary time that we set on our goals, and just really fall in love with the process, putting in the work day after day. And that's why I said earlier, my goal is to get 1% better than the day before. If people can adopt that kind of mindset and just work on themselves, you will get to that goal. it's not a matter of if at that point, it's more of a matter of when. So it's staying in the game long enough to win and really falling in love with that work, doing the work and seeing the small incremental progress that leads to achieving those bigger, lifetime kind of goals.
You know, I always tell my clients, it's like going on a diet. Okay. You can see all the ads on social media, on TV. Oh, 50 pounds in 3 months. Well, number one, we're all built differently.
Mhm.
Our metabolism is different. Age plays a part in it, your other health issues. But it's more to me about this is what I want to do. If I want to lose weight and be at a healthy range, you know what? This has to be a lifetime commitment. I have to
1,000% right.
figure out a way that I'm not going to, I don't have to lose 50 pounds in 3 months. Hey, that would be wonderful. But if I put it all back on, and my mother was always on yo-yo diets, and she would eat celery for 3 months and she would get slim and trim. And then she'd say, well, I'm here. And then she would start eating her favorites, her breads, her cookies, and she bounced right back.
Right. And that's very common. And that's a problem with these diets, right? They're short term, they're finite, and they may work in the short term, like you just described, but unless we're changing our mindset and our habits, most people are going to gain it back, if not more. And so that's why I focus on an approach, a lifetime approach, a lifelong approach, that it's not okay. And in that you do this for 90 days and you're going to get to where you want to go. Yeah, I can get you to a certain point in 90 days. That's not a problem. However, I'm also going to allow you to maintain that and even continue to improve based on the approach that we take, especially when it comes to nutrition, because that is the fundamental, that's the foundation for success, and everywhere else is controlling and having discipline with what you put in your mouth. If we can't control that and really control the energy that we generate from that, right, because of the quality of the contents we consume, you're going to have struggles in other areas of life. I guarantee it. That's just kind of how it is. Health and fitness is really the foundation for success. If you can take care of yourself, if you have the discipline to eat right, to work out, to be cognizant and aware of what you're putting into your body, and that's not just food, that's drink, that's content that you're consuming, all these different sources of energy and vibrations. Once you are able to master it at that foundational level, you can apply that same kind of discipline to almost every other aspect of life. And that's a problem with those yo-yo diets, is that they're not really changing your habits or building discipline. It's here, suffer through this 90 days while you're eating celery only, and then figure it out on your own afterwards.
Right.
And they don't have the habits, they don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge to know what to do when that 90 days ends. And that's where a good coach comes in, right? It's not only am I giving you the tools to get good results, I'm giving you the tools to maintain and continue to improve as long as you're breathing, right? This is a lifelong process, just like you said.
Exactly.
Unless one of us ends up being Jesus in the second coming, none of us are going to be perfect, and we always can improve day after day after day. And so as long as, or as soon as, that's better said, as soon as you're able to adopt that belief and that kind of mindset, things not necessarily get easier, but you're not going to get as frustrated and quit as easily.
Exactly. I started podcasting 10 years ago. And after the first year, I had people calling me up and saying, so how many hits are you getting? And, who's following you? And I said, number one, I have a group of podcasters, so it's not just me. We all have our own individual way of marketing. I do some marketing for them, but they're responsible to make sure that their network knows who they are. And so I said, and I don't really look at the numbers. I do if somebody calls me up and says, I'm thinking about sponsoring your show. Okay, I better look at the numbers because they're going to want to know what those numbers are. But for the most part, I do it for me. And I know I'm helping others. If I didn't do it, somebody that I know isn't going to find you, and you might be the right coach for them. Well, isn't that what life is about? Finding and sharing with each other. So at the end of the day, when I put my head on my pillow, I know I've done something good, but I'm also
Right.
learning from other individuals. And I'm saying, you know what? Maybe I should try that. Or no, you know what? I've tried that. That's not my style. I can't do that.
Sure.
Actually, it's not that I can't do it. It's I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to find
Right.
another way.
Right.
And so it's
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's exactly right. When you're working to really help people at the end of the day, right? And if you help one person, then what you've done is a success. And
and
that's really a driving factor for me, is trying to help as many people as I can. And that's why I started doing the social media stuff, because like I said before, I was not active. I wasn't posting. It'd been almost a year since I posted last before I started this. And now I post multiple times a day, and I get messages and from people that say, "Hey, that really helped me out. Thank you for putting that piece out," or "That video really spoke to me. It helped me get over this issue I had." And that alone is enough for me to keep going and doing what I'm doing. They may not be clients yet, right? Paying clients, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to push this message out and push people to be better, to reach to their potential so that they can help others, specifically their families, so they can show up for their families. Because especially men, as head of the household, we need to lead by example. We need to be servant leaders, and we need to bring energy, positive energy, to our family, because we set the tone. If we're doing it properly, everybody has their role, right? And everybody feels that love, and they fall into place, and it's a cohesive unit. And if the head of the household is lacking, or a hypocrite, or a poser, as some like to say, saying "do as I say, not as I do," which a lot of people have that situation, there's a direct impact on, especially on the kids. And for me, like, that's not acceptable to do that to the kids. They're your responsibility. They're there because of you. So you need to give them the best possible example and the best possible life you can. And if you're not working on yourself, you're not going to be able to do that for them. So that's why I get a little fired up sometimes. Like, you need to step up, because I see myself and what I used to do and what they're doing. And I again, I see every day the positive impacts of my changes, my mindset shift, and really me stepping up and fulfilling my roles and responsibilities on my family. And I know anybody can do it. I'm nothing special. I just made a decision to not miss, because of the four people that live in my house and depend on me to show up every day.
I totally understand. Before I started podcasting and coaching, I worked for a for-profit college. And so it was very important that we basically sign up everybody who walked through the door. I didn't quite understand that when I first took the job. Um, and so I sort of fought that technology and that culture. It was like, but if this person can't afford it and they're going to take out $100,000 worth of loans for a 2-year program, I can't do that. And I
Right.
was constantly being told, you can do it, you can do it. And I would have people walk into my office, and the first thing they'd say to me is, I want to be a nurse because I like helping people. And I'd sit there and go, I'm not a nurse and I'm going to help you. And I would listen. And many times I would say to them, you may want to look at some other avenues, because even though I wasn't supposed to talk financial aid, I let it slip, because if you can barely get the bus fare to come here for the interview, I'm not going to put you in debt for that. And
Yeah.
it was that taught me, wait a second, I've got the education for this. I have the background for it. I don't want people to suffer the way I had suffered at some of my jobs and
Sure.
my decisions. And you know what? I may share my path with somebody and they may look at me and say, oh, I'm not like that. And that's okay. But there's a little bit of your path that I definitely relate to, you know? Um,
Sure.
the college that I was working for, I was there going on 10 years. And one day they looked at me and they said, isn't it time for you to retire? And the culture was very young and I knew what they were doing. And I said, no, someday you're going to find me dead underneath my desk because this is where I want to be. But it was just that remark that made me realize I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah,
Not
and
because I couldn't do it, but the culture was making me ill.
yeah,
And
100%.
so,
That's that energy.
and so that opens your eyes. And
Absolutely.
my son and my husband have told me I've become a better person. Even though he's bringing home a great paycheck, I became a better person because I walked away.
Yeah, you stood on principle there, and that's ideal. And that's hard to do for a lot of people too, right? Because everybody needs money to live,
Absolutely.
and very few people will stand up for what they believe when it comes to choosing their beliefs or that dollar. And it's a hard choice to make, and it can be scary too because you don't know where it's going to come from. You're not sure if you have rent, if you're going to be able to make rent, that kind of thing. And it should be applauded when you do stand up on principle, and I think it's rewarded, maybe not immediately, but in the long term you are rewarded for doing the right thing, as we're taught as kids.
So, how can my listeners find you? Because obviously, you've got a wealth of background that is going to help many, especially like you said, men. Um, you know, I had a great role model as a father. He never said he couldn't do anything. He always said he would try. Um, every once in a while, when he'd tell me I couldn't do something, he would correct himself and he'd say, well, let's try something else, which he was smart enough to know that, you know what, this is going to be really difficult for you and you're going to get frustrated. And so this is not the right thing. And he would lead me. So he was my coach without even
Right.
realizing it. Um, my husband, on the other hand, grew up in a family where you go to work and this is what you do. Um, and so he's a lot more regimented than I am. But there are men out there who need your help. So, how do they find you?
The best place is on Instagram right now. My handle is at the level up dad. You can check me out there. I post, like I said, daily. I post my thoughts, my approach, my training, my nutrition. So I really try and pull back the curtain and show exactly what I do and the effects it has on my family and my life. And that's the best place is going to be Instagram. I'm on there daily. So check me out there at the level up dad.
And I'm sure you're teaching your boys as they're growing up too.
That is the goal. Yeah. And it's funny because I like to say that they may not listen, but they're always watching and they're always absorbing. And a quick story real quick. My middle son painted a picture of me and him for my birthday. My birthday was at the beginning of the month, and he painted him. He's got this long curly blonde hair, and that's on there. And then he painted some black things on my arms and on my stomach. And I asked him, like, what is that, dude? And he goes, oh, dad, those are your muscles. Those are your abs and those are your arm muscles. And I was like, you know what? You killed it, man. It looks great. And so it's just evidence to show you that they are watching and they absorb, even though they may not be listening directly to what you tell them to do. They're watching you and they're absorbing your habits, they're absorbing your traits and what you do on the daily basis. So it's imperative for us to show them the right way to live, how to take care of ourselves, how to push ourselves, and really how to love on our families as well.
Well, I will tell you that my youngest son, who is 34, working in sports, not playing sports, um, I spent a week with him before Christmas, and he must have told me a dozen times that week. Now I understand, Mom, why you did certain things. Mom,
Mhm.
I'm really proud of what you're doing. And it's like, where did this come from? And they get there because, like you said, they are observing. Um, as young kids, while they're still living at home, they're not always going to tell us that mom and dad have the right ideas. But
Right.
you know what? If we're doing a good job, we'll find out about it later. I'm so glad you joined me today, Patrick, and we'll put all your information in the show notes. So there's no excuse for anybody not to find you. And I think everybody should go out to Instagram and learn a little bit more and, maybe get some free tips. I like that.
Yeah, come check it out. And if you
All
have
right.
questions, feel free to send me messages. I answer all that stuff. I'm not trying to withhold anything. So if I can help in any way, just reach out.
I appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks again. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.